Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Changing Tides podcast. In each episode, we invite guests to have honest conversations about their mental health journeys with the goal of destigmatizing mental health within the Asian American Pacific Islander community. Due to the nature of the podcast, we'll be discussing a variety of mental health topics and possibly triggering experiences. While we and the majority of our guests are not trained professionals, we encourage you to practice self-care while listening and seek professional guidance if you or a loved one is in need of support. With that said, let's start the episode.
Hello, my name is Anna Glenn, and I describe my mental health journey as a roller coaster, I guess. There's been a lot of ups and downs, especially throughout my college career. Started at a high, then went low, then back up high, then low again, and but now we're at a high, so everything's great.
Hello, welcome back to the CT podcast. I am back to being the host. I am Matthew Yonemura, and I'm much more comfortable to be the host again rather than being the interviewee. Thank you to Ty for being a very amazing guest host for last week. I hope you guys liked the episode. It was cool for me to be able to go back and reflect on my own mental health story so that you guys know me a little bit, and also just it was a cool exercise for me to do because I haven't really discussed it that much ever since going through it all and doing the yearbook article, as I mentioned in the interview. But I'm so happy to be here. And actually, I'm guessing there's going to be quite a few new listeners to the podcast. So, welcome to all the new listeners, and welcome back to our supporters from the previous ones. I figure we're going to have a few more listens to this one, mainly because of our amazing guest that we have today. So I'm going to read off this little resume that I have for this person because they are quite the person, and because once you hear it, I don't think there's many people that this list of accolades would apply to besides this one person. So they are a 2018 NCAA team champion. They are a 2018 NCAA Columbus Regional Vault co-champion. They are a 2019 honorable mention for Pac-12 All-Academic. She is the founder of the UCLA Athletics Brewing Brave campaign, and she also just graduated from UCLA in the class of 2020. So, with all those accolades, I'm so excited to share the interview that I had with Anna Glenn. So, Anna, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. We are connected through a lot of UCLA connections, a lot of UCLA support from Changing Tides. I am actually one of the few that are not UCLA, but it's an honor regardless, of course. So let's start off with this roller coaster ride. If you could break that down a little bit, tell us about what makes it the roller coaster that it was and where you are now.
I would say my mental health journey kind of started my freshman year of college. And, I was really excited to come into college and start competing for the gymnastics team. And I had just come off of an injury my senior year of high school. I tore my labrum in my right shoulder and then was out for that season. So that was really disappointing for me. So I was really excited to get back into the gym and really prove myself to my coaches, my teammates, and everybody else that was out there supporting me. Um, but then I came in for our preseason training camp and then tore my shoulder again before school even started. So that was really tough for me. And that is kind of what plummeted me into this dark hole that I kind of, dug myself into. And that's where, all the issues started. That's where, I had weight gain issues. I had issues with like self esteem, like just feeling super depressed about not being able to compete. Um, and so, yeah, that whole transition year was super tough for me. And then, luckily, through the support with my teammates, my sister, my coaches, I was able to finally come out of that after a year.
Mm-hmm.
And then, went on to win a national championship and have the greatest year of my life. And then, years following that, for the past 2 years, it's just been nagging injuries here and there. And then, the disappointment of not being able to compete again. And then I finally got my shoulder fixed again for the third time this summer. But after graduating and everything, and then going through this whole issue of COVID and having my season cut short right before our senior meet, actually, That was also another low point. But then, I'm the type of person that just kind of looks forward to the future. So I was kind of, ready to move on and get my life started and start a career and things like that. So yeah, just like being able to look forward towards all those things kind of helped me, get out of that, negative space of, dealing with, depression and disappointment and everything related to the sport.
Right. So there's so much I want to touch on there. You touched on so many things that I really want to dive into. Um, First thing is, I want to say I could relate to exactly what you were going through, but my injuries were for freshman basketball in high school.
Okay.
So definitely not the same, definitely not the same stakes, nothing like that. I only played 1 year of high school basketball, so I can't relate to the same exact pressure. I'm sure it's something that very few people can relate to, which makes your story so unique. But let's kind of bring it back to before we can touch on that. Let's help get to know you a little bit. Let's kind of start with your childhood and tell the audience a bit about your upbringing and how you found gymnastics as a passion.
hmm my sister and I, we were actually adopted from China when we were a little over a year old. And through that experience of being adopted and going through the orphanage and everything like that, my sister and I were both pretty malnourished coming in. And we also ended up developing rickets when we were
Mhm.
babies. So we did have a developmental delay. And so when I was brought to the US, my parents recognized that delay and wanted to kind of take that head on. So they enrolled us into gymnastics classes to help us, build those gross motor skills and that strength that we were lacking. And we started that journey when we were like 2 years old, and obviously not very conscious of the fact that we were doing gymnastics. But then through years of continuing it, we ended up really enjoying it, and so that kind of really brought us to where we are today and becoming, top tier athletes.
Yeah, because it's amazing that not only did you guys come through such a tough background and have these developmental like delays, but to continue to become the athletes that you are, both of you together, it's unbelievable. Um, so how did you realize that you had a passion or that you were excelling at gymnastics? Because as you said, when you're that young, you probably don't even realize it. It's just fun. It's just a sport you do. Like, so how did you find your passion, and when did you realize it was a strength of yours?
Yeah, I think we started realizing that gymnastics was something that we were really passionate when we got to the elementary school stage, I think.
Mm,
And then that's, when you're like writing and doodling and stuff in your
right.
notebooks and you're like, I love gymnastics. And then it's like everything gymnastics, right?
Right.
So at that point, then I really started having a passion for the sport. And, just my entire life was revolving around it. We had practices every afternoon. It would be school, then gym, then school, then gym. And then
Hmm.
it just, a never ending cycle.
Right.
Um, so really immersing ourselves in that process and being a part of that, I think really made us realize that, gymnastics is something that we want to continue for a while, and that can potentially, propel us forward into university. But I didn't really have an idea of that until I really got into the recruiting process back
Hmm.
in middle school.
Wow.
uh,
That's
yeah,
crazy.
it was crazy. The whole recruiting process started early for gymnasts. And the year that I started recruiting, that's when it especially started getting early. Um, my dad, he's like super involved with our gymnastics career, and
Right.
he was the one that kind of really set all these spreadsheets out of like top schools, top gym programs, and
Hmm.
combining them all and everything like that. And so when we started the recruiting process, that was after our eighth grade year. And then that summer we went on our first unofficial visit, which was just so wild because I was like, I just finished middle school, haven't even started high school yet. I
Right.
hardly know what high school is, barely know what college is. So I'm like, why am I doing this right now? So it was super crazy, and it really, really fast. But then eventually school started scouting us. And then I was like, okay, I guess we're going to have to take it from here.
How important was it that both of you guys went to school together, both you and your sister? And were there any offers that like only one of you got an offer to, or?
Well, yeah, we basically said, like, any coaches that were trying to recruit us, we're like, "We're a package deal. Like,
Uh-huh.
you're either getting both of us or none of us." So, that was a huge deal breaker for us because, growing up, we were super, super close. We competed with each other. We literally did everything together. Back in our like grade school, like we were in the same classes together, so like almost inseparable. So there's no way we were going to be able to go to different schools together
Mm,
or apart from each other. So, we really made sure that that was kind of ingrained in the process, and then there were a couple of offers that they were like unsure of. I think Georgia, they were saving spots for Olympians or elite athletes that weren't exactly at the level that we were.
mm.
So that was a little bit of a hesitancy there when we were being recruited by them, but everybody else seemed to take interest in both of us, which was great. um, and then we only really looked at three major schools when doing recruiting, based on athletics and academics, that the schools offered, which was UCLA, Stanford, and Georgia.
Very
And then
cool.
after visiting all those schools, we ended up picking UCLA, just a combination of everything, and it just was a perfect fit. When we went to visit there, I just felt at home. So
Mm.
it ended up working out for the best.
I'm sure the weather helped maybe a little bit.
Bit.
Of course.
I'm sure there's a million things that we could do to talk about, North Carolina, Charlotte.
Charlotte, North Carolina.
Charlotte.
Yes,
I'm sure there's many things that we could talk about the differences, but we'll get to that a little bit later, I'm sure.
of course.
But so you get accepted to UCLA, you choose UCLA between the three schools. Both you and Grace, you both become two of the stars of the UCLA gymnastics program. I mean, of course, there's so many people like it's a great gymnastics school, so it's gonna be you
Yeah.
among other names. Um, but you're also much more than a gymnast. So you pursued a degree in psychology, which you just graduated with in 2020. What made you pick that as your major?
Um, so it's funny, I came into UCLA, declared as pre-med bio,
Oh, wow.
which was so hard. My
Yeah.
first quarter was the toughest thing in the entire world. I was taking so many hard classes, and I took my first chem class, I took my first LS class, and I was like, this is not for me.
Uh-huh.
I was like, I don't have time for all of these prereqs. So like I ended up just, deciding on something that was less of a demand academically, that was easy to balance or easier to balance with gymnastics. And then I just really took a liking to psychology, just because I really was interested in the mind, and I really
Mhm.
liked observing things and behaviors and stuff like that. And so I felt like that was a perfect route for me, and I wasn't really sure what I wanted to go into long term or what I want to do long term, and I kind of still don't know. But I think that knowing that psychology is so broad and there's a lot of different options for that, I think that's what really propelled me into picking that major.
Gotcha. See, I'm in my last quarter of school. I'm a film
Okay.
major, and then when I hear
Okay.
about people doing
College.
psychology, pre-med bio, whatever it is, like all these crazy majors, like I just can't believe you went from one science to another science while still doing gymnastics.
It's
Yeah.
just,
But so psychology is a hard major, even though you went from one hard major
Harder
to
to a
to
lesser.
maybe a little bit less hard. But while you're being a Division 1 gymnast, that's not the typical college experience that most people have. Um, so how did you find time to balance both of these?
It was really hard. Like, I'm not gonna lie, that was really tough.
yeah.
But I did find a lot of balance with finding friends outside of the athletic community that can
Mm.
really help me with school, and really prioritizing school over gymnastics, even though obviously both were a major priority. I knew that I'm going here for an education. It's like, this is what's coming first. This is what I'm getting out of this, being here and this experience. So I really made sure that, school was something that I really took seriously, and that I didn't just lay off. Like, if there was practice or something, like I made sure that I got my homework done before that. So yeah, just like really sorting out my priorities and a lot of planning, a lot
Yeah.
of organization. That's really, really helped me. And luckily, I'm a very organized person. I'd like to think that. That definitely helped me through, the struggles of balancing the two.
So let's just add to your resume. Not only
Did
did
you
you
balance
balance
psychology
psychology
and
and
being
being a
a
Division 1 gymnast at UCLA, nonetheless. But you were the founder of the UCLA Athletics Brew and Brave campaign. Is that the exact title, or did I miss that up at all?
Yes, you're
Okay,
great.
cool, cool. So how did this come to fruition? What inspired it? And how did you also fit this into your already busy schedule?
Yeah, the Brewing Brave campaign was something that I'm really passionate about. And it kind of came about based off of my personal experiences dealing with mental health, and then also just, seeing and observing everybody else in the athletic community and realizing that everybody has like, a ton of different struggles going on. It's all very different. I see my teammates struggling. I see people in other sports struggling. And I was like, this is something that we don't really talk about in the athletic community, especially at UCLA. And knowing that it's a D1 school and something that like everybody has their eyes on. I wanted to make sure that people really realize that student athletes, go through things that nobody else can really understand, and that it's tough, and that we have to really make sure people understand that. So, going through this whole process and making sure that people hear other stories and things like that was something that I really wanted to create at UCLA. And so after my second year, I guess, during my second year, that was when I really wanted to take foot on this. And after going through my first year experience, I was like, you know what, like I've come out on top of this, and I really realized how important like taking care of my mental health is, and starting therapy, and talking to teammates, talking to coaches, and just starting conversation about my mental health was really important for my healing process. So that's really how it all came about. And it really became a success, and people started taking on to it. And when we created our PSA video in 2018, that was super powerful, and people were so excited about that. And then that just really made me so inspired to continue the campaign. And we ended up rolling out 2 games last year that were promoting the campaign. So we had the men's volleyball game, and we also had the women's gymnastics meet, which was like really exciting. There was like almost 7,000 people at that meet, and it just got so much attention. I was so excited about it, and people really loved it. So I hope it inspires other people, and I hope that it's really doing what I set out for it to do.
That literally gave me goosebumps to hear that you had 7,000 people at this meet, and you were able to use,
crazy.
not only were you able to like show off your talents as a gymnast, but also this passion for mental health that, so many athletes, you hear about all these professional athletes that have been talking about mental health. This is now the 3rd interview in a row for this podcast where you talked about professional athletes and talking about mental health and the stigma around it. But
I love it.
For these huge, like, whether you are humble about it or you want to brag about it from the mountaintops, you are a UCLA like student athlete. You're like, that's huge. Like UCLA,
Yeah.
like you're on a pedestal for certain people. So for you to
Mhm.
open up and talk about it, that's going to be huge.
Mhm.
And then for the 7,000 people there, then for social media, for everything else, it's just like huge kudos to you, because you reach so many people, and it's going to continue to reach so many people.
Thank you.
But with that said, you were realizing this need for your own mental health.
Mhm.
So I'm sure not only did your campaign teach you some different, techniques, but how throughout your busy schedule did you find time to maintain strong mental health through ups and downs of college, through just being a normal college student? How did you find time, and what did you practice?
Yeah, I guess just full transparency, like there were times when I didn't really deal with it, and that was
Mhm.
really hard. Especially, I think last year was probably among one of the hardest years I've had, dealing with injuries and just a lot of disappointment and things like that. But what I found really helpful was, for me personally, like I use therapy, and then I saw the same therapist for the past 4 years, and really building that relationship helps me get through all my ups and downs. And then also really confiding in a lot of my friends, and really being able to talk to them about it, or just like have them to lean on whenever I was feeling down or anything like that. So really surrounding myself with a group of people that were really supportive, and knew me well, and were able to support me whenever I needed that help, um, was something that really got me through all the craziness.
We're taking a quick break to introduce Anchor, the sponsor of this podcast. Anchor is free, first and foremost, which is amazing. Who doesn't love free? and you can record everything directly into Anchor. It's so easy to use Anchor. That's how you are listening to this podcast, whether it's Spotify, Apple, the Anchor website. You're listening to it because I uploaded this podcast episode to Anchor. If you want to start your own podcast, I highly recommend Anchor. It's made this whole process so easy. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Jumping back to gymnastics, I'm sure some of the mental health like ups and downs that you were talking about had a lot to do with gymnastics. So your freshman year, you did have to miss the season after undergoing the surgery you had for your torn labrum.
Mm-hmm.
How did this all affect your mental health? But how did you push through specifically this moment?
Yeah, that was definitely a really hard thing for me to deal with. Having, a second shoulder surgery and coming into my freshman year, and the transition itself was really tough. So dealing with all of that on top of each other was an enormous weight on me. But then, going through that whole process and the recovery process, it's like I've done it before, so like I understand how it works. But then also having my teammates, luckily, college gymnastics is a little bit different than club gymnastics, where everybody is so supportive, and it's, everyone's rooting for the same team and everybody's in it together, and you're competing for something bigger than yourself. So everybody was so helpful in terms of the whole recovery process, and really celebrating those small milestones that I had during the recovery process was really essential for me to getting back on my feet. And then also for myself, like really celebrating those milestones again, being able to raise my arm for the first time after surgery, or being able to swing on the bars, or whatever it was, something super small. It was definitely intense, and it really helped me, because there's a lot of stuff that is really brings you down when it comes to surgery and not being able to compete, but then being able to celebrate small things like that is what gets you excited again.
Can you talk a little bit about that difference between the club? Because I was never a gymnast. It's not something would ever have been able to do.
Right.
Could you talk a little bit about the difference that you talked about between club and then college?
Mm-hmm. Well, club gymnastics is a little bit different than college gymnastics, where it's very, very individualized, and everybody is just kind of in their own zone. Like nobody's really worrying about anybody else. Obviously, like you are on your club team, and you do compete for like team titles, but like that's not really like super important to anybody. Everybody's always like, worrying about their own scores, worrying about their own all around scores and things like that, because that's what really matters to them at that point. And that's what really gets you noticed by college recruiters.
Gotcha.
So, being like able to like stay in your own lane is something that you really hone in as a club gymnast. And then, coming to college and being able to adjust to like a team atmosphere is very different. But it is a lot more fun when you're competing as a team. So that's why a lot of people really love college gymnastics and really work towards getting to that point.
Awesome. Yeah, because I'm sure if it was still that same cutthroat mentality of like everyone for themselves, I'm sure it would have been a much more difficult process.
Totally.
But luckily, so I'm going to read off a little bit of this because your persistence definitely paid off. You came back 2018 as the top scorer on vault every day at the NCAA championships. You scored a career high of a 9.876 as the lead off on vault at the Masters Classic, and then you made your competitive debut. I did do my research as we talked about before. Just wanted to make sure that we were prepared. I wasn't asking you about stuff that people already know about.
Yeah, I love it.
So how did that feel? Like you're talking about these little milestones of raising your arm, but how did it feel to come back and then have this type of season after your rehab of your surgery?
It was so overwhelming, to be honest. Like I literally I was just overwhelmed with emotions, especially the first time I competed again. I was like, I don't know what to do with myself. Like, this is crazy. Like, it's been 2 years. I don't know how to handle this. But it was just so amazing just to feel like that, rush of adrenaline again, and being able to go out there and really perform and show people that like, I'm back, I'm really like thriving now. So it was really, really exciting to be out there on the competition floor again, and really being able to contribute to the team, and especially at nationals, like just being able to compete on podium in front of all these people, especially at I think it was the Super Six at that point. unreal, like an unreal experience. So I'm really glad I got that opportunity and that I was able to recover in time for that, especially winning the national championship.
I'm also curious about, again, I super low stakes. I played basketball for fun, but every time I would get hurt, I would be kind of hesitant to like, I don't know, put full weight on the foot that I hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you like have the confidence, or what helped you gain the confidence to like, you have to trust your body that you're healed, that you're ready to go?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely tough. And there were points, especially in the recovery process, where I was like, I'm not really sure if I can do this right
Mhm.
now. But luckily, we have a great athletic trainer, and that I'm really close with, and she really understands how gymnast bodies work, and she's very trained in athletics and understanding gymnastics in general. So she was very invested in my recovery process and rehab, and she really knew at what points I needed to start doing what. So there was a lot of communication with her and me and my coaches in terms of like how I'm feeling in terms of getting back into doing different things. So with that communication, that's what kind of built up my confidence to start doing certain skills again. So it really depended on how I felt, but sometimes, I just had to like throw myself and just do it.
Mhm.
It's like, I'm scared, but you know what, whatever, I've done it before. It's in the bank. Like I have that muscle memory. So it's just a matter of trusting my instincts and my muscle memory in being able to do it. And a lot of it was just like really falling back on that,
Mhm.
muscle memory
Right.
essentially. So yeah.
So this also just hit me because it's you're you train, and then you have these moments of like these kind of quick spurts of each performance or each round, I guess, right?
Right. Yeah.
So how like do you have a routine to get yourself into like to calm your nerves? Like, do you have a set routine for each time you're about to go out there?
Yeah, well, for each event, I guess I do a different thing before I go up and compete. A lot of it is visualization. We really hone in the aspect of mental training, especially at college level gymnastics, because
Mhm.
your bodies are so broken down that you can't do all the reps that you were able to do back in club gymnastics. So, being able to mentally do the reps in your head was something that really helped us with our consistency. So doing that right before I go up to compete was something that really built my confidence up. And I was like, okay, like I just nailed that in my head. I can nail it out here in real life.
Right.
And so doing those things and a lot of like timing stuff that I would just kind of like do like as a routine before I go up. So, I mean, like some of it's kind of superstition, but at the same time, it's just something that you're so used to doing that it just kind of becomes second nature.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So jumping ahead, so the next year, 2019, you do earn honorable mention for the Pac-12 All Academic Honors. You competed. You sat out due to injury again. You come back to compete in the NCAA regional semifinals. Everything seems to be going well. Then 2020, uh, that kind of derails things during your senior
Yeah.
year. Can you talk about, having the other injury and then the season cut short all during your senior season?
Yeah, that was all crazy.
Mhm.
I guess like anyone could explain last year as crazy. But yeah, just like I mean, like going through those injuries again was something that was really tough, and again, a lot of disappointment because I was really hoping that my senior season was going to be something super incredible. Like I had built myself up for these past 3 years to be, this force to reckon with, essentially. So I was like super excited. My preseason had gone really well, or I guess that summer training had gone really well, and I was really strong, and I felt really confident about my athletic ability at that point. But then, my knee started bothering me, my back started bothering me, my shoulder started bothering me, like everything was just kind of breaking down. So I was like, you know what, I don't know if this is gonna work out. So it was definitely really tough dealing with that. And then again, once season hit, every weekend was me like, am I going to be in? Am I going to be out?
Mhm.
So it was a lot of teeter tottering between that and then a lot of communication with my coach, trying to figure out like if I'm ready or not. So that was really, really hard. And that took a huge mental toll on me because I was just like so on edge and there's like so much anxiety leading up to every weekend because I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be in, I don't know if I'm traveling, like a lot of uncertainty. And then again, with the uncertainty of season ending and everything like that, that was just crazy. And luckily, like I was kind of on the path of, looking towards my future and not really like, I guess, not really dwelling on the fact that like my gymnastics career didn't have that closure that it wanted to, like most of my teammates. So when season ended, it was honestly sort of a relief for me because I was like, well, now I don't have to deal with, all this uncertainty again. So that was a relief in itself. But then at the same time, it was kind of disappointing not being able to finish out the season and not being able to have our senior competition and everything like that. That was a bummer because season got canceled 2 days before that meet. So it sucked.
That's
We were
so
all looking
crazy.
so forward to it. And it was the biggest class I think UCLA has seen in a really long time, if not ever. And we had Olympians, we had elite athletes, like it was just like an enormous class and everyone was so excited for our senior meet. And I think we were planning on having like an entire senior lineup for that entire meet because we could, which no one has ever done before. And then, it was a bummer that didn't work out, but yeah, it was crazy.
That's that's something for sure.
Yeah.
That's so tough. But, you know, despite missing your senior season, or it being cut short, I should say, when you do reflect on your 4 years at UCLA, what do you want your legacy to be?
I think I want my legacy just to be someone that didn't quit, someone that really pushed through and had a lot of resilience going through the past 4 years. Like it wasn't easy. I didn't get to compete as much as I wanted to, and there was a lot of stuff that happened over the past 4 years, and I really wanted to make sure that I just didn't back out. Like I'm stronger than that. Like I can do better than that, than just, quitting on my team and everything like that. So a lot of it was putting other people before myself, which, was good in a sense, but at the same time, it did come at the expense of my mental health at certain cases. But, I just really wanted to, be the best version of myself. So someone that just really puts herself out there and tries everything that they can and exhausts all options. And, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, but that at least you tried your best.
Right. I think that's, that does speak volumes because it translates to more than just athletics. So if that's something that anyone could take away, whether they're studying for a final, whatever it might be, like that does leave a mark on someone to see that from a student athlete.
Right. Yeah.
So
Now you graduated. We are currently in the post-COVID graduation era. Today is the inauguration day. Today itself has been a day. It feels like
2020, it's this 2020 like season 2.
It's just
Yeah,
like this whole
literally.
thing.
So how has post graduation treated you in the COVID era?
Post grad has been interesting to say the least. I At the beginning I was like looking for jobs and stuff like that, but then I realized, maybe not now's not the time for that.
Hmm.
So I kind of took a step back. I went back to school. I did a couple of extension classes with UCLA, just to kind of use as like resume builders or just also just like gaining knowledge in different areas. I took a UX content strategy class, and then I also took a Photoshop class because I was looking into digital media. So that was really interesting and a lot of fun. But now I'm back in the looking for employment phase of quarantine. And I mean, I do have a couple of interviews. I'm looking at actually kind of shifting gears. I'm looking at potentially doing pediatric occupational therapy
Hmm.
later down the road. So I did do an internship during that whole fall quarter when everything was crazy too, when I was dealing with injuries and doing the broom brave thing and training and all that craziness. And then I did an internship doing stuff with kids with autism, which was super
Hmm.
fulfilling and I loved it. So I'm trying to continue that on. So looking for jobs in that. And then I also took on a role doing video production assistant with the UCLA gymnastics
Oh
team,
wow.
actually. So that's been really fun too. And I just recently started that. So, just trying to keep myself busy. But, like I do kind of want to stray away a little bit from the sport because it has been like my whole life, the
Hmm.
past like 20 years. So, just like looking to expand myself in other areas and dig deeper into like what other, things I can do out there. So that's been interesting, just being able to get to know myself a little bit differently, I guess, and just doing different skills and stuff. But it's been a lot of fun. So
That's awesome. And you know, that's such a thing. I feel like that's such a difficult transition that you're handling so well, is that it is something that's such a huge part of your life. But as you did major in psychology, like you are like you found a new passion and you're
yeah.
finding a new career path. Like I think that's awesome that you seem to be, amidst everything going on, you're handling it amazingly. So that's awesome.
I'm trying.
You know what? I also looked at your photo website. You're doing great stuff there
thank you.
too. So we'll make sure to plug that.
Okay.
So
Great.
moving forward, what is your encouragement for people who are struggling to open up to others about their own mental health?
Yeah, I guess I would say that, take it step by step, and that everybody's journey is a little bit different. So not being able to compare yourself to others and how they're dealing with certain things, and just really trying to find it within yourself to figure out what you need. And also really having a nice support system that can really help you through anything that you're going through. That's something that, like, personally for me has been really, really beneficial. So, just taking it day by day again. And it will be a crazy roller coaster like it was for me. But going through it, riding the wave and figuring things out is just, the most you can do. And just, trying to find resources that you think will be helpful for you. And a lot of it is very individualized. So just really making sure that you comprehend that and understand that.
Right. I think that's something that I always try to preach, is that mental health is not a one size fits all. So
Right.
I love what you said about that. Thank you. This wraps up the major part of the interview, but
Okay,
now
great.
I want to jump into the little quick fire section
Okay.
of just some quick ones to get to know you a little bit, and I want to start off with the highly requested UCLA questions that some of the people on crew wanted me to ask you.
Okay, great.
So, what was your favorite UCLA dining hall and your go-to meal there?
Oh my God. Okay. Feast.
Okay.
It's probably my favorite. I mean, it is the Asian dining hall. But I don't know. I really liked their chicken. Like the teriyaki chicken was actually really good. And like when we put on a sandwich, like I don't know. I ate it with everything. I ate it with rice. Like that was like a go-to thing for me. Also, like, as an athlete, like I was pretty health conscious. So I was like trying to make sure that like I got my proteins in, I got my carbon, like everything, like just making sure that I was having a balanced meal. But that really was like a staple food for me at the dining hall, because it was good protein and I thought it tasted really good with rice. So
I have a really good friend of mine who's still a UCLA student, and I would get to visit and try the dining hall. And
yeah,
wow.
it's unreal. It's different than, and like I don't know any difference. So like I just know it's really good. But like when people from like other universities come and then just try the food, they're like, what is this? Like this is amazing. Like this is like another level.
I'll just share a really quick story just so you know what it was like at my school. So
Okay.
I only lived on campus my freshman year, so luckily I didn't have to enjoy this all the time. But
Yeah.
one day it was like spaghetti and meatballs. The next day it was like sweet and sour chicken. The third day it was sweet and sour pasta. So they just combined the two. So
That's awful.
if that's any indication to how different it was,
Yeah.
there you go.
I mean, blessed to be at UCLA with number one dining hall, honestly. It was great.
So there's that. But anyway, jumping to the rest of the quick fire. What is your go-to karaoke song?
Oh my God. I've only done karaoke once, actually, which is crazy. But when I was in college, I joined a group called ACA, which is the Association of Chinese Americans, and I met like some of my best friends there. And I remember this one time when we were doing karaoke. It may not be my favorite karaoke song, but it's definitely one that's definitely ingrained in my brain. And this is like the moment when I met like my current roommate, or like one that I had like last year. And then we just knew that we like clicked, because that was when we met each other. We sang Get Low. I don't remember who is that by. Anyway, that was one song that we sang and nobody else was singing it. And it was just the two of us. And I was like, this is so awkward, but hilarious at the same time. Cause like, this is just like an unheard like karaoke song. And we're just like blaring it and just like singing to the top of our lungs when everyone else is just sitting there silently. So that was probably one of the craziest, weirdest experiences I had in terms of karaoke.
Match made in heaven, though, right? Match made in
Yeah,
heaven.
it was perfect.
Favorite childhood memory or one that sticks out?
Oh my God, gosh. Oh my God, put on the spot now. It's hard to think.
I know, I'm sorry.
Favorite childhood memory was God. Now I literally don't know anything from my childhood.
We can come back to
Well,
it, or we could skip it if you need to.
okay. I mean, one thing, it's not really childhood. I guess it's like more like teen
Okay.
stage, but like it's kind of related to gymnastics. Or it is related to gymnastics. Winning or like not winning, getting second place at the Nazi Lincoln Cup was something that will definitely stand out in terms of you know, my high school days and things like that. Like that was like probably the best thing that happened to me in terms of my gymnastic career before college. And we competed at the Dallas Cowboys Stadium, which was like super random but super cool.
Yeah.
And it was like the best of the best kind of coming together and competing with each other. So that was super exciting. And then you got like fancy Swarovski leotards and warm-ups and everything like that. So that was like a really crazy experience for me.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. Not childhood though.
No, isn't that weird though? Because it kind of is like
At
like,
this point,
yeah.
like you're looking for like a
I guess you're right.
you're looking for a real job now. Like that's kind of your childhood. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think about.
Put it that way.
Not to give you like a quarter life crisis or anything, but
Yeah, I know, right?
if money weren't a factor, and let's also say degree wasn't a factor, what would your dream job be?
Oh, you know, like when you're a kid, they always ask you what your dream job is. I never really had one. I remember when I was a kid, I used to say when I was like really, really little, I was like, I want to grow up and be a duck, be like an animal. So that was like weird, but I never really had like a job in mind. But I think something that would be super cool would be like, I was actually watching old videos when we went back to China. My sister and I and my family, we went back to China in 2008 to visit for the first time,
very cool.
since we'd been adopted. And we were like watching old videos, and we went to like this panda enclosure, and it was just like seeing the people work with pandas was like super cute. And I was like, that's something I think would be fun at some point, just doing for like a temporary amount of time, but fun because you just get to play with pandas all day and feed them. So super cute.
Maybe like a retirement gig. You know, you could kind of just
Who knows?
I don't know.
Or the duck route. I really love the duck route.
Or the duck route.
I love that one.
Yeah, I definitely have it written down in like one of my preschool books that I wrote. I was like, I want to be a duck.
Who would have thought that UCLA gymnast truly wanted to be a duck?
Right. I mean, that's just reaching high at that point.
Yeah. In a different direction, what are you currently binging on Netflix?
Oh my God, I love shows on Netflix. Well, I recently just binged Schitt's Creek.
Okay.
Which I loved, super fun, and I actually did cry in the finale. So it was fantastic. And I also just started Criminal Minds recently, which is really fun. Super interesting. I don't know. I like reading about crimes. Weird. And I was like looking up like which cases were like, or like which episodes were based off of real cases, because it just like really fascinates me, and like that stuff is really creepy, but I love it.
No, not creepy. Also, if you get around to it or you need a new crime show, I highly recommend Mindhunter on Netflix.
Oh my God, my dad literally was just telling me about it yesterday, and I heard it was so good.
It's so good.
Yeah.
But anyway, what do you miss most about LA?
Well, I am going back in a week, so I do miss it, but I won't miss it for long.
Right.
But the food, for sure. There's just like endless amounts of food available, and especially the Asian food, fantastic. Like I live like in Brentwood area, so it's like super close to Sawtell, and Sawtell is like my go-to spot. Like I can get ramen, udon, sushi, boba, whatever I
Right.
want, like within like maybe like 3 mile distance. So it's fantastic and I love
Right.
it. Yeah.
Well, even though you're maybe only there for a little bit longer, what do you love most about Charlotte?
Um, to be honest, I think just like being here with my family, like it is
Mhm.
closer to a lot of my extended family too, which I don't really talk to very often because we're all kind of in different places and we're all super busy. So yeah, that's been hard. But like especially I come back for the holidays, which is really nice. So I do, like when I'm back in LA, like sometimes I do miss that, feeling of family and being together with people, especially during the holidays.
Mhm.
So
It is home,
yeah,
regardless of.
exactly.
So,
Yeah.
um, if you could invite 5 people to dinner, dead or alive, who would they be?
Interesting. Well, I guess Michelle Obama. I think
Okay.
she's fantastic. Ellen DeGeneres, I really like. I think she's hilarious. Trying to think who else. Uh, I guess like there's like certain like Asian influencers that I really like following, and I can't really pick out a name at this point, but like one of those.
Okay.
Um, I just like being around people that like make me laugh. Oh, Dan Levy because of
Okay.
Schitt's Creek. I think he's like the coolest person ever. So I do want to meet him one day.
Okay.
Yeah, and I really can't think of anybody else. But I do love celebrities, so they're pretty
Okay.
cool.
For sure. For sure. What is a hidden talent of yours?
Hidden talent. I don't really have any hidden talents, but I guess the only thing that I guess, okay, drawing. I kind of
Okay.
draw sometimes. I really like to delve into my creative side whenever I get a chance to. So I did a lot of sketching back in my college days. So a little bit of sketching and then the photography, of course, like that's something that I really like doing and apparently now video editing. So
Very cool. Very cool.
yeah.
What do you miss most about pre-COVID life?
Hanging out with my friends whenever I can, obviously.
Yeah.
It's tough and there's a lot of things I missed out on, especially during spring quarter. I think I really missed, having the opportunity I was gonna go to EDC and I was
Mm,
gonna have all these like trips with friends and stuff like that. So not being able to do that was kind of a bummer.
yeah.
But there's always next year, I guess.
Hopefully,
Hopefully.
right? Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
So let's just to round this all out. If you could give advice to yourself 5 years ago, what would it be?
Probably not to take things so seriously, because I was like one of those like hypermaniac kids that would just like like very, very prompt, very on time, like always felt like everything had to be like right on point, um, which isn't necessarily the case all the time. And like
Mhm.
I just needed to take a chill pill sometimes. Um, and I definitely took a lot of things like way too seriously than I
Mm,
needed to. So just like really enjoying things and just living in the moment, I guess. So
very
trying to
cool.
do that now, but we'll see how that goes.
Hopefully, we can do more of that soon. Hopefully,
Yeah,
more living in the
hopefully.
moment soon.
Exactly.
Well, Anna, that pretty much wraps up everything I have for you. Thank you so much for joining the podcast. I'm sure a lot of the UCLA supporters of Changing Tides will love to hear from you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Of
Of course,
course,
and
and
we'll
we'll
make
make
sure
sure to plug Brave, your
Yes.
photography, your Instagram,
Great.
your music career, whatever it is that you want to plug.
we'll
We'll
make
make
sure
sure
to
to
do
do
so.
so.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
For
For
Loved
sure.
it.
Thank you again to Anna Glenn for sharing that story. It was amazing to get to meet her and to hear her story about gymnastics, about college, about life after college. All important stuff that a lot of us are going through or have gone through or will go through. But I don't think all of us will go through that type of college athletic career. Truly one of a kind. But with that said, if you enjoyed this episode, you could go ahead and subscribe to our show for our episodes releasing on every other Tuesday. And give us a rating or review on your favorite podcast platform. If you would like to support our podcast and help us grow, you can do so with a donation to the link at the bottom of the episode description. To hear more about Changing Tides, follow us on Instagram at LTSC_Changing Tides, or check out our website, thechangingtides.org. Let's continue to change the tides on mental health.